righty.
Good? Mm-hmm. You good, sir?
Yep.
All right.
Yes, sir.
I'll wait on him to close the door so there's not like an awkward creak. Old building things.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today and taking time out of your busy schedule to share about your service.
Of course.
Today's date is June 30th, 2025. Starting off, what is your name?
Ted Roberts.
Ted Roberts. Where and when were you born?
Where I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, at Harris Methodist back in 1969, July of 69.
Nice. Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My folks are Jim and Marsha Roberts. My dad was a truck driver, and then he was a mailman and retired from the post office. But while he was a mailman, he was the mayor of our little town for about 3 decades. Then he became a judge after all that. My mom was always a high school basketball coach. She's a former U.S. Basketball player, played basketball for the United States. And so, yeah.
Awesome. And what little town was that?
Little town I grew up in was Godley. It's not little anymore.
No.
When we moved there were about 600 people, and I think we were a B-size high school, and now I think they're like big 4A, something like that.
Definitely has grown.
Yeah, I graduated with like 20.
So did you go to school in Godley?
I did, yeah, all 4 years.
All 4 years, nice. Did you go to college after high school?
I did about 2.5, I think it was. It might have been closer to I think 2.5, we'll go with 2.5. 2.5 years at Oklahoma Christian University. And then it was a Christian university, but I tended to have a good time, and I could have done better as far as grades and not run around with all the rodeo guys and the baseball guys, but wound up dropping out after about 2.5 years and moving back home with mom and dad and getting a couple of jobs and going to a junior college.
Nice. And what were those jobs?
One was working for a custom farmer, so I was cutting and baling hay all the time. It's like I was a hay farmer. Yeah. And the other was working for, it was called CDS. I can't remember what it, anyway, we dealt with bank stuff, and we would take, I can't remember if it was money or checks, but we would take that stuff up to the Federal Reserve in Dallas at night. And so that's what I did. I kind of had a night shift. Would go to school during the day and go up to Dallas at night.
Awesome. When did you join the military? I know you said there were 3 different branches that you were in. Could you share those as well?
Yeah, sure. I'm what the Marine Corps calls a ship jumper. So in 91, that was when the big Desert Storm, first Gulf War was fought in 91. And I was still going to school, and I was like, man, I got to do something. Can't stand living under mom and dad's roof, and I'm not doing anything except spinning my wheels. So I made an effort to join the Navy first, and I read too many Tom Clancy novels. And so I was going to be enlisted helicopter air crew. And long story short, the Navy said, no, we're not going to take any more first-term enlistees for air crew, and I wanted to do the rescue swimmer thing, and they're like, no, we're not doing that. So I went right next door to the Marine Corps and said, hey, I've got a really good ASVAB score. What can I do other than infantry? And they're like, whoa, we got all these things that you can do. So I ended up going Marine Corps Intelligence.
Awesome.
And so,
what other branches were you in?
just the Marine Corps and Army.
Okay.
Army later in life, much later in life.
What made you want to join? Was it just that you were tired of living at home, or what drew you to military versus career?
My dad had been in the military, and a lot of the guys that I worked with were prior service military guys. I had several friends who had dads that had gone to Vietnam, and I just really looked up to those guys. And so with my dad's experience, and of course growing up, I was always a history buff, and I was like, well, I don't know. So it might have been a little bit of romanticism, a little bit of adventurism, a little bit of patriotism in there. But you're from a small town, and so I just wanted to get out of that small town. So
Absolutely.
I wanted to look for something that was tough. Chose the Marine Corps.
Absolutely. What did it look like once you initially got in, going to basic or boot camp, and what training did you receive?
Yeah, I went to boot camp in San Diego. Started in January. Finally shipped. I joined in '91, but finally shipped in January of '92. And went to MCRD San Diego. I was a 1st Battalion recruit. There's a little bit of rivalry in there between the training battalions. I was the first bad guy. And then we did 3 months of boot camp, got a little 10-day leave, and went to Combat Training Battalion up at Camp Pendleton.
Wow. What was the hardest part about going off to boot camp for you?
I don't know. The hardest part was fear of failure. I did not want, I couldn't bear the thought of not succeeding. And so almost every day I lived in whatever challenge comes along, whatever test comes along, you're like, well, whatever it takes, I'm gonna do this. Because we had a bunch of people, I say a bunch, we had several people that just freaked out in boot camp or quit or whatever, and we shipped a lot of folks home in the 90s. And then in the 90s, it was peacetime. The Marine Corps could be very selective. And so,
absolutely. What was a vivid memory that you still kind of laugh about or find unusual today?
About boot camp? Mm-hmm. I have tons of memories about my drill instructors. Drill instructors always loom large in a recruit's imagination and memory. I remember our 4th hat. It was a guy that was temporarily attached. Drill instructor was temporarily attached to us. Drill instructor Sergeant Washington. Drill instructors always look immaculate. And drill instructor Sergeant Washington, one day when we were down in the butts at Edson Range, which is you're below ground, the rounds coming over, the other shooters are up on the firing line, and we're down there pulling targets in 2nd phase, and drill instructor Sergeant Washington jumped down in between those targets, and he got grease all over his camis, and I laughed and laughed. He couldn't hear me because of the rounds and all the commands from they call it tower, but there's a lot of stuff going on, but I just giggled and giggled and giggled because it was so funny. He was a funny guy anyways.
Absolutely.
But I mean, he was squared away, but we liked him.
Aside from him, was there a specific leader during boot camp that you still remember to this day?
Drill instructor Sergeant Hernandez and senior drill instructor, his name was Russell Meyer, I believe it was. Senior drill instructor Sergeant Meyer. He was hard as woodpecker lips. He's a little bitty dude. Sergeant Hernandez was from Modesto, California, so he grew up tough. But I had immense respect for both those cats. Drill instructor Sergeant Spahn was our 2nd hat. He was a good dude. He used to come by, when we were standing in the position of attention, he would come by and thump me as hard as he could right in my Adam's apple and try to make me lose my bearing. He did drop me to the deck a few times, but I never cracked up or anything like that.
That's funny. What was your first assignment after boot camp?
After boot camp, I got sent, like I said, Combat Training Battalion, which is about a month long, which was up at Edson Range where he qualified with the rifles. And then, believe it or not, most brand new boot Marines, they get shipped off to their primary schools, whatever that is, to learn their MOS. I did not. Because I was an intelligence MOS, I got sent directly to the fleet because they had to wait for my class to class up. So rather than send me to essentially what is Little Creek in Virginia. They sent me straight to the fleet, to 2nd Marine Division, and I got attached to what they called 2nd OSE, 2nd Operational Support Element. It was a platoon size element, and it was full of Force Reconnaissance Marines and other 0321s that were getting out of 2nd Recon Battalion. And so these were very senior corporals and sergeants all in this one platoon. And they were supposed to be an intelligence gathering platoon, but they were all getting out. They were all short timers. And so they just stuck me in there as a young devil dog with no MOS. And it was a great experience for me.
Good luck.
Yeah, those young guys were absolutely I learned a lot at 2nd OSE. It was part of 2nd SRIG, 2nd Surveillance Reconnaissance Intelligence Group. They were super NCOs. They were all just salty as could be. And it was weird because our platoon commander, the Marine Corps has platoon commanders, the Army has platoon leaders. Our platoon commander was a warrant officer, which you never see. But we had a platoon commander and a gunnery sergeant that were running the platoon, and we did a lot of high-speed stuff. It was good training.
Incredible. How many deployments did you do?
Ultimately, with the Marine Corps or with the Army?
Both.
Okay, with the Marine Corps, I did 2 Westpac deployments, which are these 6-month affairs where you go typically to Asia. Some Marines go opposite direction to Europe, Mediterranean. But both my deployments were to the Pacific. So we went to Japan and Okinawa and Guam, places like that. I was an intelligence Marine by that time, and I was part of an F-18 squadron. And these F-18s were Deltas. So they were too big and too heavy to actually go on aircraft carriers. And so everywhere we went, we flew, just from airbase to airbase to airbase. So I did the intelligence support for all those pilots and backseaters in F-18s. It was a good experience as well.
Absolutely. Did you ever serve in a leadership capacity through your service?
Eventually, yeah. You're talking about the Marines or in the Army?
Either one.
Okay, well, I didn't even talk about the deployments in the Army.
We'll talk about the deployments in the Army.
Okay, well,
let's hear them.
You know from the initial questionnaire,
yes.
When I finally got to my unit as a 2nd Lieutenant platoon leader, infantry platoon leader, I did 2 deployments to Iraq with 1st Cavalry Division, 2nd Battalion, 5th Cav. That was the actual mechanized battalion I was with. So the first one started in 06 and my last one ended in 2010. What was the other question you asked me? I forgot already.
Did you serve in a leadership capacity?
Oh yeah. So in the Marine Corps, eventually I made it to a corporal and then pinned on sergeant about a year and a half before I finally ETS'd. In that position, really, I was junior man on the totem pole. I was responsible for a handful of other Marines, but basically so the intelligence cell is so small, you're not out on the ground commanding troops. As a platoon leader and as a company XO and battalion staff officer, yeah, responsible for a lot of folks in 2-5.
So what led to your jump from the Marine Corps?
To the Army?
To the Army.
Well, I got out of the Marine Corps in 97. I did a 5-year hitch. Probably would have stayed in the Marine Corps had I been given the opportunity to go on embassy duty, which was, you got to understand, there was peacetime. There was nothing going on, so I wanted something more exciting than the intelligence field. So I wanted to be an embassy guard, and they were like, no, you're a sergeant, and you're not getting out of the intel field. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to get out and go to school. So I got out and went to school. By that time, I was 27, going on 28 years old when I got out of the Marine Corps, and I was like, all right. So I came here to Tarleton, did a bachelor's degree, master's degree, and while I was working on my master's degree, 9/11 happened. And then when 9/11 happened, I actually contacted, it's It's down in the weeds. I actually contacted the Israeli government right after 9/11 to see if I could join the IDF. Yeah, because I think a lot of Americans were wanting some payback. And so the only people at the time that were fighting anybody in the Middle East was the IDF. So I contacted the IDF and sent them a packet of information and all this stuff. But about the time that I was doing that, well then U.S. forces went into Afghanistan. So I was like, okay, well maybe I got a chance of getting back on active duty. And so while I was teaching school as a grad assistant and then later on as adjunct faculty, I was pinging the different services to see, can I get back in with a commission? First place, obviously, I checked with was the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps was like, no, dude, you're way too old. By this time, I was like 33, something like that, 33, 34. And so I didn't know that I would be on the ground in Afghanistan, because that's what I was thinking at that time. If I went Air Force, and I knew I'd be on a ship somewhere if I went Navy. So the only logical conclusion is the Army. So I started pinging the Army, and the Army was like, you're pretty old, dude. And then they started taking all these casualties in 03, 04 after the Iraq invasion. And then suddenly the Army changed their tune, and they were like, we will get you an age waiver. And so they got me an age waiver. And then right after that, the Army increased the age limit to like 40 or 42. So ultimately, I didn't need it. But I needed it the whole time I was doing the paperwork to get back on active duty with the Army. And it was a very elaborate process.
Was it harder to get back when you went Army or Marine Corps?
It was harder to get in the Army because if you were going the officer route, if you were going to officer candidate school, you had to get through all the hurdles to come back as a prior service guy. And the other services are not real keen about taking Marines on board anyway. The Army was like, yep, we'll take you, but we need to send you to sort of like a finishing school so you can learn Army customs and courtesies. But my age, I think I was closing in on, I was definitely at least 35, and I think I was closing in on 36 by the time I signed the papers. But I was going through boards that were meeting up in Dallas to see if you're suitable officer material, and met a number of youngsters. I call them youngsters. They were definitely younger than these guys. Were all fresh out of college. But yeah, it was getting the age waiver and getting all that. Took a lot of paperwork and a lot of legwork.
What was it like coming back and, new branch, but you had already served prior, going to OCS school? Because usually it's, fresh out of college kids who haven't served before. What was that like?
As I remember it, it was surreal because I'd been teaching college kids, and now here I was back kind of in the fold. And they sent me to a school, a course called the Warrior Transition Course. I don't even know if I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist anymore, but back then, I guess they had a lot of folks that were coming out of the other branches going to the Army. Basically what they would do is they take all these Air Force and Navy dudes, and I found out later that Marines weren't even supposed to go. You didn't even have to go, but they stuck me in there. So I was the one lone Marine in this entire huge platoon of about 60 people, and they dropped us into Fort Knox on the tail end of a basic training company and the Army was training these young tank drivers and cab scouts at Fort Knox back then. And it was just surreal because everybody was, they weren't as old as me, but they were all older. They were prior service folks. And I got put in charge. I guess they just saw prior service Marine, put him in charge. And ended up being the #1 graduate out of that class. But
really?
Yeah, it was weird.
Were you involved in any notable battles or conflicts?
No, not. I'm pretty sure not.
Okay.
A lot of my time was just grinding it out in the desert, and then later on in the city. There was no big. The Battle of Fallujah, which was right near my first combat outpost, that had happened 2 years prior. But no, I wasn't part of a big. I was part of the Great Sunni Reawakening, if they call it. But that wasn't a battle. That was.
Yeah.
They were still having problems over in Ramadi, but where we were just getting all the squirters out of that campaign.
Is there a memorable incident that you'd like to share?
From all that time deployed?
Yes. I mean, I'm sure there's several.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
is there one that just comes to mind?
There's one I think about every day, probably about every hour. And that was my worst day in Iraq. And it was the one patrol where I know it wasn't my patrol to start out. I wasn't the patrol commander. I wasn't the patrol leader. But I feel responsible because I didn't say something to my company commander before we did it. But it was the one patrol where we actually lost. I'd been on patrols where we'd taken casualties before, but I hadn't lost anybody KIA. And that one was a bad one. So we were, there was an effort underway during the Sunni Reawakening in '07 where we were trying to, we being ISAF, not ISAF, I forgot what the coalition acronym was for forces in Iraq. Maybe it was ISAF. Anyway, they were trying to recruit as many Anbar residents as they could to become Iraqi police officers. And in this far distant town between Fallujah and Baghdad, a place called Nasr wa Salam, there's this Iraqi police station where they were doing this recruiting drive. And we would take these potential recruits from Nasr back into Baghdad. Anyway, our guys ended up setting up a pattern, and the bad guys, we were fighting Al-Qaeda back in those days, called them Al-Qaeda in Iraq. AQI was watching what we were doing. They noticed the timing, when we would leave, when we would go in, what the force structure looked like, what the patrol structure looked like. And in this particular day, they set us up for a suicide VBID, a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. Sure enough, it was like clockwork. As we were rolling out, we had in the old days, when my platoon would go out for duty at the combat outpost, we would stay for about, 14 days, and then you would rotate back to the flagpole to get Class 1, Class 3, and Class 5. This particular op, we'd loaded up a bunch of recruits in these little white vans, and there were only 3 victors, 3 vehicles, U.S. vehicles. And so we had my company commander, the company skipper, he was in an 1114 up on the front, and then we had another truck that were the guys we called the fisters. That was a little artillery element, forward observer element in the second truck, and then my guys in my truck, and we were just going to escort them back. I'd already sent my platoon. They were with my platoon sergeant. They were going to rotate back to the flagpole back at Baghdad International Airport, and I was just going to link up with my guys whenever we got back with these Iraqi recruits. Well, anyways, long story short, coming out of the police station, they drove a 7-ton Mercedes dump truck right into our convoy, and there was a huge mass of Iraqi civilians outside the gate. And the real target was to drive into the convoy and into that mass of people and then detonate their weapon. And they did. And I can't remember, the people back at BIOP, they said they saw a mushroom cloud. They heard it and felt it. It was that big. And they killed, probably 60, 70 civilians. But the detonation is weird. The detonation kind of had an hourglass shape, and my Victor, the tail should have been obliterated. As it was, the blast came down through the turret of my 1114, burned my gunner, and blew my driver completely out the door. But because it was shaped like an hourglass, the only thing it did to me was knock me out and burn the back of my shirt and stuff. But it absolutely destroyed the Pfister's vehicle in front of us, and that's where we took our KIA, and we had like 3 or 4 litter urgent besides our one killed. So that was a bad day. And I watched the whole thing unflow, and it happened so fast that not anything you can do. I can even remember what the guy that looked like, I remember what he was wearing. I watched him shifting gears and everything. It was worst day, because that day we had, right after that, it was a complex ambush. So right after they hit us with a V-bid, when I came to, they were still hitting us with mortars. And I think the only help that I got initially was the first vehicle. There was an interpreter, a medic, gunner driver, and then my skipper. And that particular day, a skipper kind of went catatonic, just combat ineffective, shock. I think that was his very first combat action. Wasn't mine. And I was trying to save the guys that were hurt badly. Serious burns on everybody. And so I was trying to set up a security perimeter with IPs and also render aid and do all this shit. And anyway, complex attack was over with. They didn't hit us, I don't remember, with small arms. I remember returning fire, but I think it was very indiscriminate. I was trying to basically just have everybody get back off of us. The first people to me was actually a Marine platoon. Those guys were next door at Camp India, and they had a little, back in the day, both the Army and the Marine Corps would set up these little teams that would train Iraqi soldiers and Iraqi police officers. Their MIT team was the first ones to get to me, and they had 2 extra corpsmen. So I had our medic and 2 Navy corpsmen working on my casualties. I eventually ground evac those people to Fallujah Naval Hospital, and then got everybody else back to the battalion headquarters back at Liberty. But yeah, worst day ever. And there had been other days where I had taken more casualties than that, but that was the worst one. I guess probably because we had so many dead people, and yeah, bad.
How do you feel like that event has shaped you even today?
Well, it never leaves me. It's with me every day of my life. Yeah. Yeah, in fact, that's a kid there. Wasn't a kid, young fellow there that was killed. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I know that's a sensitive subject. What did you do obviously when you're deployed, there's not a whole lot of free time, but even when you weren't deployed, what did you like to do for some R&R?
If I had free time, which was very seldom, I'm a pretty voracious reader, so I read a ton while I was deployed. That's about all I remember doing. Later on, much later on, when things kind of slowed down, as we sort of segued into 2008 and the Sunni reawakening, I know I keep saying it over and over, but it was, for us, we went from, contact every day to like birds tweeting and nothing. I mean, you could walk out, you didn't need a helmet on your grape. You didn't have to wear body armor. It was just completely different. When things slowed down, I had a little miniature DVD player, and I would watch these have you ever heard of the Rick Steves travel guy on Channel 13 on PBS TV? back in the day, he would make these little DVDs about going to Italy and going to Spain, and I would watch those things. I'm like, if I survive this place, I'm going to Europe
Did
for a
you?
while. I did, yeah. I actually spent many months after my last tour. Yeah, I went over there and kind of decompressed for a little over. Yeah, I was there several months, probably about half a year, just going from one tour to the next, backpacking around Europe and hanging out with different folks.
Absolutely. You definitely earned it.
Well, I don't know about that. But
Did you form any friendships during your time in the service?
oh my gosh, yeah.
Do you still talk to them?
Yes, people I'm still in touch with to this very day. People I'm super, super close to. They're like family. Still in contact with my best buddy from the Marine Corps, Dave Orchard. He's still out in California. He has 3 girls. When we got out of the Marine Corps, he went to work for Santa Fe, and I think if he's not retired from Santa Fe, he's pretty close. They've got 3 girls they've already sent through college, all of them softball players, and so I'd still talk to him all the time. He's still in California. My platoon sergeant from my very first deployment, I still talk to him all the time. He's down in San Antonio. He retired down there, retired as a first sergeant. My company commander and first sergeant from my last company, still super close to those guys. Those guys are like family. And it's not an exaggeration when they say, they become your brothers. They are. Band of brothers, yeah. It's for real.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends throughout that time?
When we would come back, you couldn't do it when you were out in sector or when you were living out there at the COP or the Joint Security Station. But we would always rotate back to fix the tracks, fix the trucks, get more ammo, get food and whatnot. When you come back to the big airport where the big major American base was, they had these little internet cafes that you could walk into, and I would go in there, and I can't remember how they worked. It seemed like you got a little bit of time, and I would just email folks. And I saved all my emails from 2006 through 2010. I still got all that stuff saved. Yeah. In fact, I don't remember how this happened, but somebody got it to my mom, and she printed off all of them in a notebook for me. So I got them in a notebook too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you still have it today?
I do.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Were you ever in the service when they started allowing cell phone communications?
I think they had cell phone communication when I was in there. I remember the first cell phone I ever bought was because I needed it as a leader. Because I think I had gone all the way to 2005 with a flip phone. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember. I can't remember when I got a smartphone, but yeah. I don't. I want to say back in 06 though. There was. I think maybe some personnel might have had phones that would work in Iraq, but I'm pretty sure our American cell phones didn't work over there. I don't know. Suffice to say, the only way I could talk to anybody was via
email.
Yeah, email. And I wrote letters, snail mail.
Absolutely. Do you recall any humorous events from your deployment? Or any unusual?
Nothing comes to mind right off the top, but yes, I can remember funny instances. There's just nothing that comes right off the top. Some of them are funny to me, and they would not be funny to you.
In the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of some funny stuff, but I don't know, I got all emotional thinking about that one day. Yeah, but not every day, was a total suck fest. There were funny moments,
Absolutely.
for sure. Yeah.
What would you say was the best part about your service experience?
Whew. Talking to you as an educator who teaches history and military history, I would say in hindsight, I am, and this was my part of my motivation to go back as old as I was, because I was very old. Compared to other second lieutenants, I was 36 when I got commissioned, or about to turn 36. I am proud of the fact that I did not miss the war of my generation. I think I'm a Gen Xer, and there's not a whole lot of veterans from my generation. There are even fewer combat veterans, and so it's one of the things that I am most grateful for, is that I'm a combat veteran and I didn't, miss it.
Absolutely.
Do I regret it? No. There are things that I do regret about it, but it all has to do with me, not the experience.
Absolutely.
There are things, or many things I wish I could have done better or different. But, yeah.
And by things you wish you could have done better, different routes of action taken?
Yes, yeah.
Gotcha.
Just everything. I can think back now, there's so many more ways I could have been a better leader. Could have maybe even shaped the fight differently on other occasions. Just to have, I don't know. Maybe everybody's like that, but I don't know.
Knowing
I do have a
everybody's
lot of
like that doesn't
regrets.
make it easier, though.
Yeah. I can just think of several engagements where if we'd have just done this, we hadn't gone down this road, maybe so and so wouldn't have got hurt. Oh, that's early on in my first deployment, we were running what they call these Iron Claw missions. And Iron Claw was called Iron Claw because there was this big armored vehicle that had sort of a crane-like arm that would unfold on it. And on the end of this arm, it had, like I'm holding my fingers, it had kind of a pitchfork thing. And this thing was used to interrogate improvised explosive, buried IEDs. So it would like scoop the earth and look for mines, for lack of a better term. They're not really mines, but because these things are huge, they're much bigger than mines. Anyway, we also had a vehicle that would roll up front, look sort of like a road grader. You know what a road grader looks like? Okay, and then it had these sort of wings that would fold out, and they were aimed at the deck. And the purpose was, it had one youngster who was the driver. He had a set of headphones on. And his job was to drive along the side of the road listening for mines or metal in the dirt. And on this one, we were in a back road somewhere, the heat of the middle of the day. It's probably like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, probably about 119 degrees. And we were all sitting, we would roll traditionally with a couple of tracks, Bradleys, so these infantry fighting vehicles, sort of like tanks a little bit, a couple of gun trucks, and then we had the Buffalo, which had the arm on it, and then we had this Husky that looked for the mines. So the kid was by himself up in the very front, and then he calls me up, and he's like, hey, sir, I think I might have something here. And so I watched him back up, or pull forward and then back up. And then he came back on the net. He goes, yeah. And about the time he says, yeah, boom, gigantic explosion. Shit just goes flying everywhere. Pieces of the vehicle flying off. And then I was like, son of a... And then he comes back up on the net and he goes, I found it.
Oh my God.
First of all, I was relieved,
Yeah.
but that youngster, he's an incredibly tough kid. He was fine. Those things were built to absorb damage, thankfully, and that was a massive, deep buried thing, but he was okay. But yeah, he's like, hey sir, I think I got something. And then he backs up, bam. I found it. Yes, you did.
Yes, yes, you did. Do you recall the day that your service ended? What did that look like?
Oh, it was
First or second time?
The first time was sort of I got a big send off first from the Marine Corps. I got this plaque, and I got a Marine Corps K-bar knife, which is this fighting knife, and I had another big plaque behind it, and all the guys from the intel shop gathered around and clapping and slapping me on the back and giving me a send off. And I remember that night, my last day, I was going on terminal leave, and I went to a cowboy bar in Los Angeles and had a big time, and next day got on the road for Texas. And but getting out of the Army was very, very anticlimactic. We had come back from my last tour, and I had made the decision that I can't remember how old I was, 41 or 42 or something like that. And I was like, I want to be a terminal major, and I'm going to be old as shit by the time I reach the end of my career. I'm not going to be making near as much money as what I think I could, or what I thought I could make on the outside. So I made the decision to get out, and just everybody got shipped off to different units. And so all the people that I'd been downrange with, they were all gone. And people were getting out, people were going to school, and it was just very anticlimactic. It's like, I don't know, all the people that you were close to just went to the 4 cardinal directions, and they're like, here's your stuff, sir, and you can go down here and process out. And it was not pleasant. It was just, I don't know.
Did you ever look back and think, like, did I make the right choice?
Yeah, I do that all the time. I do that all the time. What convinces me that I did make the right choice is that, like I said, I would have been a terminal major. I would have been in charge of the parking lot at Redstone Arsenal somewhere. I would have been so far away from the troops that it wouldn't be funny. And so I think I did make the right choice, because my dad, I didn't know at the time, but my dad only had a few years left to live. And so I'd actually gotten hired by diplomatic security, the folks that guard State Department officials when they go overseas. I'd even turned down a deployment to Yemen to stick around the family. As my mom went from being dark-haired when I first left for Iraq, and I came back, she was already white. Her hair was white as snow.
Oh my goodness.
And when I was talking about going to Yemen with DS, my dad was like, you sure you want to go back to the Middle East so soon? I was like, no sir, I am not so sure. And so I ended up calling him and getting out, and I'm glad I made that choice, because I got to be with him. I started teaching here right after, but at least I got to be with him, you know, because he died whenever he turned, he just turned 80. I think he'd been 80 for about, well, he turned 80 sometime in September, and then he died in October. So, 3-time cancer survivor, and massive cardiac arrest is what killed him. But he had a long, full life. So, and I was there for the remaining years that he had. So I was glad about that.
That's good. And you returned home to Godly to be with him?
Yeah, yeah. I was living down here. I'd already moved. When I got the job down here, I moved down to Stephenville. But they were still living at the old place up in Godly.
Was your family excited to have you back home?
Yes. That would be an understatement. My mom especially. Yeah, everybody was tickled.
That's good.
Yeah.
How was your adjustment to civilian life?
Terrible.
Terrible?
It was horrible. Emptiness. Constant emptiness. Felt like it didn't belong. Just, it was awful. It still is sometimes. It's still, I don't know.
What made you feel like you didn't belong?
I don't know, it's like everybody else, you know, everybody I went to high school with got married, had kiddos, you know, lived the traditional life. I never did any of that. I was deployed, or I was a student, and then I was in academia, and then I was back on active duty, and then I was deployed again, and I don't know, I just feel like there was another way my life could have gone, and my life went this way. And now, you know, I don't know, it's weird.
A fork in the road.
All my friends, they kind of lived traditional lives. The friends that didn't, my closest friends that I was deployed with, you know, we all have, you know, a commonality, a bond. But my friends here, you know, it doesn't make them less friends. They're still dear friends of mine, but it's just different.
Absolutely.
You know, I feel like an oddball. A little bit.
So you had gotten your master's prior to going to OCS, correct?
Right, yeah.
When did you go back for your PhD?
I have not done a PhD.
You have not?
I do not have a terminal degree, no. No, I still just a master's. The only education stuff or official training stuff I've done since then was I got a grad certificate from Texas A&M down at the Bush School of Government for military affairs, defense policy stuff.
Gotcha.
But that's the only thing I've done since then. I'll probably go back and do some more training. I am thinking about going back down there and get another master's, but this late in life, doing a PhD, I don't want to be really a historian per se. I enjoy teaching the history classes that I teach. And I know I teach military history, but I teach military history as somebody that's been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And there are certain things that I want to impart to people that are about to go put on the uniform and do it for real. So I want to make sure they understand some things before they get over there. And
Absolutely. What's it like leaving the military to where, you know, it's yes sir, no sir, to coming to college where, you know, students sometimes have attitudes? How was that transition?
I don't know, you don't demand the same type of thing same type of discipline from college students. And gosh, the discipline thing between the Marine Corps and the Army is night and day. All right, so being in the Marine Corps is kind of like, some people will get this, but being in the Marine Corps is kind of like being in a cult. You're Marine 24/7. In the Army, especially in big Army, there's the world, the Army, there's the world of big Army, and then there are combat arms inside big Army. And so combat arms is similar to the Marine Corps as far as the discipline and the training and stuff like that. But college students aren't terribly different from young new people in your platoons and in your squads and stuff like that. You just don't demand the same things. You know, I don't demand excellence from students. You know, we're not going to get in a shoot house and go over it. It doesn't. Nobody's life is dependent on,
Absolutely.
you know, what kind of score we get over Benjamin Franklin and John Adams. Doesn't. So it's not the same. I do run what I think is a tight classroom, you know, but I don't think it's draconian by any stretch. So.
And do you feel like your service in the military has impacted the way that you teach history?
I don't know if it impacts the way I teach history. The way I teach history is probably more impacted by the other historians I learned the craft from that are all now retired folks. Like the Zellmans, Don Zellman, Patricia Zellman, Chris Guthrie, Rick Cruz, Mike Pierce. Those guys, they were my mentors. Well, they're all retirees now. In fact, Chris is passed on, but they're the reason why I teach history the way I do. Now, the way I set up a classroom and run a classroom, that's definitely 100% Marine Corps or Army. My classrooms are like what you would get if you went to a course at Fort Benning or something like that.
Absolutely.
You sit there and watch slides and take notes.
Well, I have heard about some of your classes, and students seem to speak very highly of you. So clearly you're doing something right.
You're very kind.
How did your experience kind of change you as a person coming back? Did it change you?
Well, obviously, yeah. Not obviously to anybody outside my purview, but it definitely shaped me. My mom will say, if she were here, she would say that I am far more serious now than I ever was. I have worked on this since I got out of the service, but I tend to be I hate it, but I tend to be shorter with people, more impatient maybe with people than maybe I once was. I don't know if that's true or not, because I think I was completely different when I got out of the Marine Corps than when I went in. That was probably the most drastic change. I think prior to Iraq and now post-Iraq, that's probably a lot of big change. Outlook in life is probably different.
Did you ever attend any reunions?
Yes.
Really? You're the first one who said that you have.
Yes. Yeah. In we have had one reunion since I've been out, and it was back in maybe 2017, 2018, and we all got together online and put together a reunion down in Kerrville, Texas, and we did it at this big ranch that was set up down there specifically for these types of events, very posh.
And what was the name of it?
I can't remember to save my life, and
because I think I know the one that you're talking about.
yeah, there's a big swimming pool and nice place for dining out, and we had a big dinner and all this stuff, and got together and told stories, and I saw tons of people. That was, like I said, 2018. I'd gotten out in 2010, and all those guys I was with, I hadn't seen those guys since 2008, so it'd been at least a decade. But it was fantastic, and since that time, gosh, I guess 2 or 3 people have committed suicide since then from that group. So it was cool. It was very much. I wish we would do it again. When you go back and you watch like Band of Brothers, and you see all those old timers, getting together at some of those reunions. I completely understand it now, but yeah.
Do you feel like that reunion kind of helped you? I know that you had said when you transitioned, yes, it had been 10 years, but even today you said sometimes you still feel like the odd man out. Do you feel like at that reunion, you maybe didn't feel like the odd man out?
Oh yeah, obviously. I mean,
felt back at home?
You're one of the pack.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to say some things to folks that I wish I'd told them a long time ago before I'd, said goodbye or something like that.
Incredible.
Some of the regrets that I'd been carrying since that time, decisions I'd made on the spur of the moment. I got to clear the air with some folks, and everybody, I think, left there closer. And that was I'm trying to think, a lot of that was paid for by an organization, and I wish I could remember the organization. But a lot of that was paid for a dedicated group that actually did this for veterans in units in particular.
Wow.
And so, I do remember on their board, there were quite a few Marines on that board. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And have you stayed in touch with some of those guys that you got to, see at the reunion?
Yeah, not all of them, not by any stretch, because, those guys were going through struggles, and, we'd had tons of failed marriages, and I didn't know it then, but people had already attempted suicide. We had some substance abuse problems. Hell, none of us are immune from that. I even forgot I started thinking about.
Did you stay in touch with them after the reunion?
Yeah. So, like I said, my platoon sergeant, a handful of folks that are from the company, but like I said, shortly after that, I said we had one suicide bothered me a lot, and then I think we had one killed on a motorcycle, and then but anyways, still in touch with those cats. I hope we get to do it again with the guys that are left.
That's good.
When we got back from that first tour, when we were all still relatively fresh from Iraq after that first tour, we had a number of people that were killed in accidents, all involving alcohol, and I got it. I understand it now. I didn't back then, because I was in the throes of my own abuse problem back then, but we lost a number of folks. I think we had like 6 killed across the battalion in motorcycle accidents. It was just getting liquored up and then getting on a bike. And I was guilty of that too. Had a Triumph Speed Triple. I would ride 130 miles an hour everywhere and didn't care if I bit the dust or not. At that time. Completely different now, but back then I didn't give a shit one way or the other. So it was still fresh back then. A little bit older and hopefully wiser.
What are some of the most important lessons that you learned from your military life?
I don't think I've ever sat down to think about that. There are military things that I took away from that were told to me before we ever went down range, and now I wish I'd have paid attention to that. I wish I'd have paid attention to that. Now I know exactly what we had a 1-star come in and talk to us before we graduated from the infantry officers course, and he gave us basically an entire check sheet. I still kept that thing. In fact, I go through it with my students in my military history course. If I know these youngsters, these young men and women are going to put on the uniform for good, then I go through that checklist with them. And a lot of it's obvious stuff, but yeah. I guess one of the things you don't do is you are less apt to take things for granted. Like you and I sitting here right now. I would assume when we both come to work tomorrow, everything's going to be as it was. But, we have no idea when we walk out that door what's going to happen. I could drop dead from a heart attack tonight or whenever. So don't take that stuff lightly. Time with people, things that you enjoy, your belief system, all that stuff is changed by that. I feel like I'm rambling.
No.
It's like a bowling ball going from gutter to gutter.
How has your military experience impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
I don't know that my feelings about war are any different. They might be, but I would have to have a more finite question, maybe a more close-ended question than that. Just that's very broad and very general. I have particular thoughts about the way people should be trained, how they should be selected, and stuff like that. How the services should work, what they should focus on. And because my war is already, gosh, how many years has it been since? I don't know, we're 15 years up down the road from my war. Mm-hmm. So I kind of feel like those Vietnam veterans in the 1980s probably. It's a little bit different. War's changed completely, just you can see the Ukraine-Russian war is completely different. That's stuff I've got to teach in the classroom, yeah. But I never had to worry about the bad guys flying a drone into our little combat outpost, much less wave after wave of little tiny drones and being assaulted by that.
Absolutely.
That's completely different.
So I've got to ask, when they ask you what branch you were in, or like put a flag up, or how sometimes they'll kind of denote veterans doors, which branch do you say?
It depends.
Depends.
Yeah, literally. Like I'm always quick to point out that I got split time because I didn't do consecutive tours. I got a tour when I was a youngster. I always tell people that that I was born in the Marine Corps and then kind of matured into a much more significant leadership role in the Army. So I will always say that my fidelity is with the Marines. But now I also, if I wasn't an Army officer, I wouldn't have any combat time. So.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you want future generations to know about your service? Not my service. No. I'm glad that there are tons of good historical works about the war that I fought in, and in Iraq. There's tons of good stuff on Afghanistan. I wish that stuff would stay in print already. I mean, a lot of it is going out of print, but there are some classics already about the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts that are going to be around for years to come. But no, I think if there's a book out there on it, then read it. I mean, there's still stuff on Vietnam I put on my reading list for youngsters to read. So those stories are not ever going to get around. Is there anything that you would like to add to your interview that we've not covered today?
Yeah, if I made any mistakes in the retelling of my story, then don't hold it against me, because I forget stuff all the time. No, that's basically, I mean, we kind of scratched the surface of everything. We could spend hours talking about that stuff, but no, I think that's pretty much the gist of it all.
Thank you for taking time out of your day-to-day to come share your military service experiences with us. It was a pleasure to have you, and thank you for touching base on some of the hard and sensitive topics.
Well, Well, you're welcome, and thank you for having an interest in it. And thank Dr. Hinojosa for doing all this and talking to all the veterans that have been associated with the project so far. It's really a big deal.
Yes.
If for no other people, then for us, it's a big deal. So, yeah, glad to participate. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
We'll mute this and I'll take